Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of Tips and Tricks with Bob Shappell, ABDS's recurring education series for our Genesis clients. Today, we're going to be tackling an exciting subject looking at secrets for routing your omnichannel interactions to your best equipped agent. The presentation today is going to go through best practices and some administrative tools to help organizations most accurately leverage the skills-based routing tools in the automatic call distribution tools, or ACD. Our presentation is going to be focused primarily on the Genesis PureConnect platform today, formerly Interactive Intelligence CIC. The concepts can be applied universally regardless of which solution an organization might be using, but the application we'll be showing is PureConnect. For our Pure Cloud customers, we will be doing a subsequent session focusing more specifically on that application and how best to optimize the ACD routing for that tool. Be turning it over to Bob Shappell to begin the presentation momentarily. If there are questions, please add them to the question field in the GoToWebinar application, and we will address them as we follow up. Thanks, and turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Luke. Good morning. We're going to start out by, first of all, defining what is ACD. So ACD is an acronym that is typically used as automatic call distributor because typically that was the only thing that was being intelligently routed to agents. However, in recent times, the last 10, 15 years, more different types of interactions were actually being routed to the agents using the ACD system, and PureConnect kind of led the way with the different types of media that we can put scores on. So what we're doing is we're routing an interaction based on two different types of scores. First of all, the score that an agent would have. So that could be his skill and the proficiency in his skill. Or maybe the agent cost, which is another number that can be placed on an agent. How long he's been available or how long it's been since he's had an ACD object. And we also have scores on the interaction itself, such as what kind of a skill requirement is needed. Maybe there was a priority level on that interaction. How long it's been in the queue, and maybe how long it's even been in the system itself. So all of those score factors are taking place anytime an ACD engine is operating. So if we're looking at a couple different scenarios, the first scenario we're going to look at is when we've got a lot of agents available and suddenly a call comes into the queue. So if we go ahead and place a call into the queue, the interaction arrives, and that interaction could have actually been treated a little bit by the IVR system or interaction attendant, assigning a skill requirement and maybe putting a priority level, but there's always a clock running on that interaction as well for how long it's been in the queue and how long it's been in our system. Once that interaction arrives, it's going to generate, the system is going to generate all of the available agents. These are agents that in fact are not working on an interaction, are logged into the queue, are activated in the queue, and their status is set to available. So they're ready to take the interaction, but what happens next is the ACD engine filters out the agents that would not be appropriate for that interaction. So it's looking at possibly a skill requirement that that interaction has and is only going to be considering certain agents that have that skill. The next part of the process is where the agent scores are then calculated, and it's looking at possibly their skill proficiency, possibly the agent cost, how long they've been available in the queue, and there's other ACD attributes that were looked at as well. Ultimately, the interaction is sent to the most appropriate agent, and the system continues working that way. Now, all of this that we presented to you in the last minute and a half occurs in the blink of an eye. It's instantaneous. And if the system cannot find an agent to send that interaction to, there has to be a reason code that supervisors can actually look at in their supervisory view. So the other kind of side of the coin, if you will, is we've got many interactions waiting to be answered, and an agent suddenly becomes available. So now we've got all our agents in the queue. They're currently working on a phone call, and one of them becomes available, either by finishing up a call, or maybe he came back from lunch and he logged in and made himself available. In any case, we have an agent now available to take the interactions, And so the system then generates the list of all the interactions that are waiting, and you can kind of guess what's going to happen next. It's going to take a look at the skills that that agent has and any other requirements that he has, and looking at the requirements of the interactions, it's going to filter out the interactions that that agent possibly could not handle due to skill requirements or other ACD conditions. So now there's down to 5 interactions left, and of course the next piece is where the interaction scores are calculated. Again, this is going to be which one has the highest priority. Maybe how long have these interactions been in the queue or in the system itself. So that kind of score is constantly maintained, and the interaction with the highest score is the one that is sent to that agent. Very simple, but at the same time it tends to make for a very efficient use of your ACD engine. Now the next thing I want to do is just do a real quick video with a little bit more animation that can explain other different types of ACD capabilities. So let's go back here, come on, there we go, and start this video for you.
Automatic call distribution, or ACD, is the contact center art and science of getting the right call to the right person as quickly as possible. There are 2 main drivers of ACD, time and skills. Time is simply how long the customer has been on hold and which agent has been available for the longest amount of time. Skills refer to agents that have an expertise in specific areas of the business. The most basic ACD option is known as first in, first out routing, or FIFO. This simply connects the incoming call to the agent that has been available for the longest period of time. Or, if all agents are busy, we'll prioritize the call that has been waiting the longest. For a more tailored experience, calls can be routed based on specific needs that the caller has indicated. For example, if a caller selects certain skills or language requirements, ACD will match them with the next available agent whose expertise aligns with those needs. Bullseye ACD is an advanced method of directing calls that goes beyond standard ACD. Bullseye routing enables agents to be divided into rings based on their proficiencies. The agents in Ring 1 are experts in particular skill sets, but if all agents in that ring are busy, the ACD engine will proceed through the outer rings to find an agent who is the next best choice. Despite its name, ACD is not limited to just call. Other interactions such as emails and chat messages can also utilize ACD to ensure that the customer gets the best experience possible.
So let's take a look at a couple of standard configurations that we just looked at in that video. First of all, first in, first out. It's usually the quickest to configure, and this is what most people are used to hearing when they hear ACD. First in, first out means I've been in the queue waiting. I've waited the longest, so I should be the next one to be answered. It does make a good use of prioritizations. It's also the easiest to maintain. There's very little maintenance needed for something like that. So let's quickly take a look at exactly what first in and first out looks like from the from PureConnect's interaction attendant. So this is the IVR. Essentially what I've got here is a default schedule, and I'm sending the calls into accounting. So caller presses 2, they go into accounting, and we've got some advanced workgroup settings here where I can see the interactions priority is 50, but we're not using any skills-based routing, so you won't see any skills that are actually asked for here. So the call goes in, everybody has the interactions priority to 50, but I did tell my customers that they will not wait any longer than 2 minutes before they're going to be reprioritized. So what I'm doing now is transferring the call after a specific number of seconds. In this case, it's 2 minutes or 120 seconds. And I'm jumping to accounting prioritized, which is right here. So when I go to accounting prioritized, again, it's just another doorway into the accounting workgroup queue, but we're changing the priority of that interaction to 500. So anybody that's been waiting more than 2 minutes is absolutely going to be raised in their priority level to 500. There's many different ways that you can obtain this kind of functionality, but this is the simplest way to be able to reprioritize your calls if you need to. The Interaction Connect platform gives you an awful lot of options when it comes to prioritizing interactions, and this is, again, just one of the many that we've seen. The next configuration that we're going to be talking about is skills-based routing. So now what we're looking at is we need agents that have certain skills to be able to get that interaction. Now, it could provide a better customer experience because you're going to be matching that caller to their specific needs and an agent that knows how to handle their needs. But if that agent isn't available, that could result in longer wait times. At the same time, it's also going to require supervisors and administrators to work together. The administrator has to be working inside of Interaction Administrator to be able to set up the skills properly. Supervisors may in fact be setting up the attendant work and making sure that the call gets routed properly and that the proper skill is asked for. So again, we can take a quick look and see what that looks like. Let's start with the supervisory view first of all, or excuse me, I mean the administrative view. So what I've done is I've got basic support and advanced support are two different skills in the support queue. And everybody has a proficiency of 1 for basic support, and I've got less agents that have a proficiency of 1 in advanced support. So if I look at my supervisory view, I can see these are the agents that are in the support queue. I can see how many have advanced and how many have basic support capabilities. So only the ones that have been trained in advanced support will have that skill. And if we go into my IVR or the routing engine itself, I've told my customers, or maybe I've given them certain numbers so that if they dial a certain number, it goes into basic support. If they dial a different number, it would go into advanced support. In this case, I have it just key presses that would go from one to the other. All I've done with each of these different doorways into the support queue is to change the advanced workgroup settings. So basic support goes into the support queue. It has a priority of 50. And when I go down into my skills, you can see that basic support is the only skill that is put into that particular, in this doorway. So that's the treatment that is put on that interaction. In other words, only agents with basic support capabilities will be offered this interaction. If I go to the advanced support, it's a little bit different. You can see that I've actually used advanced support as the skill that we're using. And again, I've left the priority the same, but you can see how you can actually change priorities if you need to as well. So this is going to offer skills-based routing. The same interactions will be going into the same queue, but only certain agents will be selected based on their proficiency or their capabilities in the kind of support that they can provide. The next configuration we're going to look at is bullseye. So this takes your skilled agents, and now what it's going to do is have some agents that are higher skilled than others. So again, you still have to use skills. However, this could provide a better customer experience in the speed of answer. Because of the fact that after a certain amount of time, the system will stop looking for the most skilled agent and will work its way through the rings. It does allow you to have less abandons and get these calls answered quicker. This might have a higher maintenance demand because you're going to be ranking your agents in their proficiency. And again, supervisors and administrators will have to work together when they're working with this. So in order to enable bullseye routing, I'm going to go back into the administrative interface. And again, we can do the exact same thing that we've done before with advanced or basic, but I'm going to use basic support for this example. The first thing I'm going to do, and this is kind of a best practice on something like this, is I'm going to take the basic support skill and I'm going to give it to a work group. So everybody in the work group has basic support. Let's see, we got to find support. There it is. So everybody in support, I'm making a work group, everybody has a proficiency of 1 in basic support. So I've done this in the skills area here. I've just simply made it simpler for me to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the different users that already have that basic support of 1, and everybody in the work group would at this point. And I've got certain people that really are better at it. Andre is not In fact, neither of these guys are, but Andy is. So I'm going to take him up to a 5. Armand's is actually a 10. He's really good at it. Brad is another 5. Camilio, I'm going to leave at 1. Dan, I'm able to put at 10 because he's that good. And you can see as you work your way down the list, you can go through and change the overall skill that these individuals have and the proficiency of that skill that they have. And Chris, of course, he's a 10. So all of those are finished at that point. And if I go and look at the actual work group itself, support, I can see when I go to the ACD queue that basic support is a skill that's been inherited by everybody at 1. And if I go look at the users, and if I put the work group of support, I can go through my list of users here, and I have the ability, and this is another way you can change their skill rating as well. So his basic support is 1. If I go to the next user in this group, now notice what I did here. I simply filtered the work groups by the work group they're in, and I can move through without having to change pages very much at all. His basic support is a 1. I go over here to, he's got a 5. Even though he inherited the basic support of 1, this overrides that, his proficiency score. And so Andy has a proficiency of 5. And essentially what I've done is I've made it so that when the interaction goes into that queue, it's going to look for the highest proficiency score that it can find. If there is a tie, there are 2 agents available with the same proficiency score, then the time available for that agent is what's going to take priority. That's kind of the tiebreaker, if you will. This ensures that your best skilled agents will get the calls first, and then the more lesser skilled agents will be getting the calls as time goes on, if you will. So the last configuration I want to look at is going to be the email configurations. And again, you have the ability of setting a skill requirement for emails. It could be based on any words that are found in the subject or the body, or other conditions that we can look at quickly. And the prioritization can also be set based on subject or body of the message. So anytime you transfer an email into a queue, you can set a skill. You can also set a priority. Now, this does require interaction attendant email configurations, and of course, you're going to have to make sure that your agents have the proper skill settings inside the administrative interface as well. So if we go into, again, into the platform itself, this time I want to look at the email routing. So very similar to the attendant that we have with regular phone calls, we can set it up with emails as well. Now what I've done is I've taken our support emails, we're monitoring the partners queue, and we're going into the default schedule here because it's a 24/7 operation for emails. We don't need specific schedules if we don't want to have them. You could put them in there if you want, but it isn't necessary in most cases with email. The first thing I've done is generated an auto reply. It's going to come from support@avds.com, and it says, thank you for your message. A support expert will be in touch with you within 24 hours. And then I'm simply looking at, okay, are we looking at basic or advanced? What are they looking for? Now, I have instructed my customers to put either basic support or advanced support in either the body or the subject of the emails they send us, but it can be any kind of conditions that we're looking at. And if we take a look at what the conditions could be, you can see if it's from certain people, if it's certain words in the subject, or specific words in the subject, if it's marked with importance, and you can kind of go through the list and see the different kind of conditions that you can look at on an email to decide how it's going to be routed. It's a very powerful tool in being able to route emails effectively. What we've done is we've looked at basic support in the subject or body, and we also have advanced support in the subject or body. Anything else, if it doesn't have any of those words in there, it's going to simply be transferred to support with no special requirements. However, if it's basic support they're looking for, then it's going to be transferred to support, and we do have some advanced settings here. We're going to ask for the basic support skill, and I set the interaction priority to only 10. If we're going to go into advanced support, however, I'm transferring it into the same queue, but this time I'm using the advanced support skill requirement and I'm setting the priority to 100. So the advanced support emails will potentially be getting delivered quicker than the basic support emails, simply because these people pay for advanced support and we want to make sure they get their money's worth. So essentially what we're looking at is the ability to route emails, route phone calls, route almost any kind of interaction based on a skill requirement, how long that interaction has been in the queue or in the platform itself, because we have a clock running for both, and how long has an agent been available when it comes to time and so forth. So if we don't have any questions, and I don't see any questions in the actual question box, I think we can go ahead and wrap up today's Tips and Tricks webinar. Luke?
Excellent. Thanks, Bob. That's a lot of very valuable information. I agree there have not been any questions asked, so I'll take that as a good sign that you explained everything really clearly, Bob. If there are questions that come up later, please see your account manager, and we're happy to work with you on those. Keep an eye out for an email confirming the next Tips and Tricks webinar with Bob Shappell, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.